thank you for welcoming me to Castlemaine and be part of the TEDx phenomena. I've been working in the screen industry for 30 years or so, particularly in the screen culture sector, working with film festivals and managing cinemas and curating film programs for a variety of organisations around Australia. And I'm going to start on a perhaps a negative note and say that, in my opinion, the Australian screen sector and film festival sector is in a state of absolute chaos and disarray. It doesn't apply just to Australia, it's internationally. The film industry in Australia is posting at 35 million less people attending cinemas in 2023 as there was in 2018. The biggest film exhibitor circuit in the world, AMC in the United States, is on the verge of bankruptcy and has been for a couple of years, owing billions of dollars. And the Australian film box office has dropped by tens of millions of dollars since 2019. So what can we put this down to? Is it COVID? Is that a thing? Is it the writers and actors strike in the US of recent times, which still is wreaking devastation across the entire industry internationally? Or is it the rise of streaming services? Or is it all of these things? Or is it one individual thing? I don't really know. In my opinion, I think the problem outside of these issues is that the cinema industry has lost contact with its own product. What business is it in? And what is that business? I don't have the answers to those questions necessarily, but I had a glimpse, I think, in an experience that I had a number of years ago in coming close to what I think the business of cinema is and what the cinema product is. And it was a glimpse that really changed my entire direction and my perspective of where I stood in the screen industry and my relationship to working in the screen industry. And that happened in 2001. I was working for the National Film and Sound Archive back then on a project called Big Screen, which was a touring film festival around the bush to remote regions all around Australia. I looked after the Western Australian and the Northern Territory leg of the tour, and sometimes far north Queensland, and I did that for 4 years. But in 2001, I was planning the tour in Western Australia, and I thought I'd like to go to a small town on the edge of the wheat belt, population 1,700, home of the Giant Ram, and home of a little theatre, a theatre there called the Little Gem, which was run by Frank and Betty Terry, who were quite elderly. And the cinema there, the Little Gem, had been closed for a couple of years due to Betty's ill health. But I spoke to Betty and Frank and said, look, I'd like to come to Wagin with the tour. What do you think? And they said, yes, we'd love to have it. They were really excited with the prospect of it. And they opened the Little Gem Theatre for the duration of the festival, which is about 4 days. The festival itself had about 6 or 8 Australian films, new and archival, and sometimes we had a silent film that would screen, and we would commission musicians in the town. Some of these towns are very small, like Wagin, and we commissioned actually the school band to perform the live score in the cinema. And so it was a very personal kind of type event. Anyway, I rolled into town in a hired car in a boot full of 35mm film. This is before digital projection and such. I hired a barbecue from the local Lions Club. I went to the pub and bought a few slabs of beer and a few bottles of wine, and went to the butcher's and bought a shitload of sausages to have a barbecue outside the cinema every night, just as the barbecue I saw on the high street here when I was walking around town early this morning. So the opening night of the program rolled around. The capacity of the Little Gem was only 60. It was a converted power station built by Frank and Betty. And so I perched myself on the grass verge outside the Little Gem and chilled the beers and chilled the wine and cranked up the barbecue and waited for the throng to arrive for the first screening of the festival. And out of the twilight emerged the audience, all 60 of them, dressed in the absolute Sunday best. And I looked at them and I thought, you guys are great, look at you. And you're turning up. And they turned up, and we had a really, really great night. And so the opening night of the festival was really fantastic. And then the second night, I did the same thing. I perched myself on the grass verge outside the Little Gem, chilled the beer and the wine, and cranked up the barbecue, the now famous barbecue in Waging, by the way. And again, the 60 people, the same people, turned up, again in their Sunday best. And I looked at them and I thought, wow, this town is great. Look, it's hard to drive an audience. It's hard to get an audience to any kind of gig, anywhere, country or otherwise. And I thought, wow, this town is really turning up. And I got to talking to one of the audience members that night, and I said, "You guys are fantastic. Look at you. You're really, supporting and really turning up. So thank you." And I can't remember her name, but she looked at me in all seriousness and said, "We don't care what's on. We just want you to come back." And that moment, it really struck me, and it actually is striking me right now. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I stood back and thought, you know what? It's not about what we show. It's not about what I'm showing. It's why we're showing it, why I'm there. And in that town, which was having its own issues economically and such, and I thought, this community is really trying to fan the embers of something that was. They're really trying to ignite something in the community. And the Little Gem, I looked at the cinema, and I looked at Frank and Betty, and I thought, this place where we're at is so important to them. It's not the films, it's the coming together of these people where they could talk about their day, they could talk about their week, they could talk about their month, they could talk about their life. And they were connected to not just the community itself through their own stories, which seems to be a theme of what people are saying today, but connected to other ideas and other people as well, things that they didn't know, people that they don't know and will never see. And so this place was such an important thing for them. And that moment completely shifted me in my relationship to what I was doing. I started, I devote then and now everything that I do to the impact it can have, not just on the community, but the individual, the one person, you, the one ripple that I can create in the community to provide a platform and a voice for people that don't think they necessarily have a voice, or people that feel isolated from themselves or their community or the world around them. So this is what I do. It's not about what I can take from people and the sector. It's not about where I can go. It's not about the amount of people that I get in a venue, which I think is the problem with the screen industry, which is based around what I can take. I work at it the other way. What can I give? What platform can I provide to all people to participate in that community and be part of the community? And just as an end point, really, with the Little Gem, which I think about all the time, and I think about Frank and Betty all the time, and the power of the storytelling in binding the community together, is that the Little Gem is now called the Betty Terry Community Cinema in Waging. It still operates very successfully. It's so tiny, and it's just such a small moment in my life, but a big moment in theirs. And this is the kind of work that I'm trying to do within the Australian film community, to boil things down to the basic truth and the connections that what I do can create in communities and people. I can see it in this town, I can see it with you. You guys turned up. And that's a thing, it's a real thing. So thank you for turning up, thank you for listening to me, and thanks for the opportunity.